deal. But it's also Final Four Friday, not just from the preview perspective or here on the show, but in the games that we will see in Tampa for the women's NCAA tournament. Much like we saw in the men's NCAA tournament, it has been mostly chalk. Now, it's 3-1 seeds in a 2 seed, but that 2 seed was not your usual 2 seed. It's Paige Bueckers and the Connecticut Huskies, who are the odds-on favorite to win their region, despite being on the 2 line, even with USC as the 1 seed. And then after the unfortunate injury to Juju Watkins, it was really all UConn, led by Geno Auriemma, into their 24th Final Four under Auriemma. And that's where Connecticut still stands. UConn is the national title favorite in minus money entering Final Four weekend in Tampa. Minus 155, though. That updated number on the FanDuel Sportsbook, it was minus 170 just yesterday. UConn will take on the number 1 overall seed in UCLA. That's one matchup in Tampa. The nightcap on Friday. The first is an all-SEC affair between South Carolina and Texas. The Gamecocks, of course, have won 2 national championships in the last 3 years. They are the reigning national title winners, but they have been tested into the round of 32 and beyond in the NCAA tournament. And they were tested by Texas in early February in Austin. Now we have 2 conference foes squaring off, and South Carolina is a 4.5-point favorite in the first of 2 tomorrow night in Tampa, tipping around 7 p.m. Eastern time. That makes sense. South Carolina should be booked as the favorite. These 2 teams have played 3 times this year, including a highly anticipated SEC tournament title. South Carolina won that game by nearly 20, winning by a 19-point margin. South Carolina has won 2 of the 3 against Madison Booker and the Longhorns this year. But Texas did make a little bit of history in that matchup in Austin in early February. The Longhorns won that game outright as a slight home favorite, 2.5, 3.5 points, 66-62, snapping South Carolina's 57-game SEC win streak. That game at home for Texas. This one, of course, on a neutral site in Tampa. 4.5-point spread. But South Carolina has been in a couple of dogfights into the second weekend and beyond in Birmingham. They were tested by Maryland, trailing into the final few minutes in the Sweet 16 matchup against the Terps, and a low-scoring affair against Duke on Saturday night or Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon it was. We had a tied ball game with about 2.5 minutes remaining between the Gamecocks and the Blue Devils before South Carolina prevailed. This is going to be a test against Texas. After the Longhorns pulled off the upset over South Carolina, I bet Texas at a 7-1 number to win the national championship. Of course, that price a little bit longer entering Final Four weekend at plus 850 because they draw South Carolina. In fact, my other national championship bet back in late January was on an unbeaten UCLA team that was looking supremely talented this year, and yet, in my estimation, was not getting the credit it deserved in the national title odds. That was a plus 550 bet on the Bruins, led by one of the best bigs in the sport in Lauren Betts. Unfortunate for me to see both of my numbers a little bit longer now than they were even about 2-3 months ago. Why? Because of how great Connecticut has been and because, of course, the pedigree for South Carolina. UConn is a minus money national championship favorite entering the Friday night finale in the Final Four tomorrow in Tampa, Florida. UConn, a 7.5-point favorite against UCLA. UConn is a 2 seed, but only in name. UCLA is the number 1 overall seed and yet an underdog. Connecticut has won 14 consecutive games by at least 14 points, including all 4 games so far here in the women's NCAA tournament. That even dates back to the ending of their year through early February and their most recent loss to Tennessee. That includes nearly a 40-point win on the road in Columbia against South Carolina. It makes sense. UConn is an odds-on favorite to win the national championship. Paige Bueckers is an odds-on favorite to win the most outstanding player award. She has been lights out so far in the NCAA tournament. But I do think UCLA keeps this game close. Ultimately, I do believe the Huskies will win. I think the Bruins can stay inside the number. Key matchup to me, Lauren Betts, the big for the Bruins. against Sarah Strong, the outstanding freshman, on the other side. We'll talk more about those games tomorrow. The Early Line returns on a Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern.